Sunrise On Demand, where you choose the stories. And this morning you wanted to know about the push for compulsory kids vaccinations. Now, under the current requirements, children are meant to get immunised at birth. More vaccines are then scheduled at 2, 4 and 6 months, then 1 year, 18 months and the final shots at 4 years of age. Now, during that time, they're immunised against everything from hepatitis B to polio and chickenpox. Many doctors believe the risk of disease and death is much higher if parents don't have their kids vaccinated. But the pros and cons have been hotly debated for years. Now, joining us this morning to discuss, Professor Robert Booy from the Westmead Children's Hospital in Sydney and Viera Scheibner, an anti-vaccination campaigner. Morning to you both. Viera, you believe vaccines actually make people more susceptible to diseases. Is that right?
It's actually not my belief, because all my statements are based on the extensive study of orthodox medical research. The immunological research in the last 100 years has been demonstrating that vaccines actually do not immunize, that they sensitize, meaning they make the recipient more susceptible to the disease which the vaccine is supposed to prevent, and to a host of unrelated and related bacterial and viral infections. So even using the word immunized is incorrect, because that would imply that the vaccines actually immunize. They don't. They de-immunize. They suppress the immune system. And all they cause is a harmful immune response, anaphylaxis, which is sensitizing, making more susceptible to the diseases.
Professor, is that right?
Absolutely not. What we see with every vaccine that's been introduced for the last 50 years, we go from a very high level of disease to next to no disease within a couple of years. And that's the truth of the matter.
Well, how do you respond to that, Viera? I suppose we look back at diseases like polio, now that they're vaccinated against, we don't see them as much. How do you explain that?
Well, first of all, if the pro-vaccinators only look at the last 50 years, it seems as if vaccination was the cause of falling the incidence and mortality from diseases. But one has to look more than 50 years, because the incidence of diseases and mortality from these natural infectious diseases fell to almost zero before any vaccine has even been used in mass proportions. Indeed, when individual states in the United States gradually mandated DPT vaccination, P stands for whooping cough, in mid-70s, the downward trend in the incidence of whooping cough reversed and indeed rose 300% and keeps rising. We have outbreaks of whooping cough which are causing real headaches to pro-vaccinators, because actually it all occurs in the vaccinated children and also very young babies before 8 weeks of age, when they start vaccinating with DPT vaccine. Because they are born to mothers who were vaccinated as children, and these mothers have no transplacentally transmitted immunity, which normally protects small babies against getting whooping cough. So it is the consequence of mass vaccination that we have outbreaks of whooping cough.
So before vaccines were discovered, there were virtually none of these diseases, you're saying?
It is not a question of stopping these diseases, because actually natural infectious diseases, measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, they are the ones that prime and mature the immune system and represent developmental milestones, provided they are not mismanaged by the administration of antibiotics and suppressing fever. Okay. Orthodox medical research has been demonstrating that suppressing fever is very harmful, because fever is not a disease, it is a protective act of the body.
We need to let the professor sort of put his point of view on this.
History tells us that improvements in quality of living have dramatically reduced the incidence of infections and death. No doubt about that. Viera and I can agree on that point. But we then get down to a point where we still have a serious amount of disease which vaccines have helped with. So it's a both-and situation. Let's talk about right now here in Australia. 7 children died from whooping cough in the last couple of years, all unvaccinated. A 7-year-old died from varicella chickenpox here in New South Wales recently, unvaccinated. 5 children have died from influenza this winter, unvaccinated. These are the truth. They are the only deaths from those diseases, and they're all unvaccinated.
It's a very hot topic. Like our Facebook page has gone into into a war between viewers on this. It's just extraordinary, the emotion of it. Sue Todd says those who don't immunise are relying on those who do to keep diseases in check. If your child reacts to the vaccine, imagine the outcome if they catch the disease. Does she have a point?
There's 2 points in there, but the first is that there's no doubt if you have enough people vaccinated, they can provide the immunity to provide a shield, what I call a chain of protection, around those who aren't vaccinated. And so those who aren't vaccinated can benefit, and they might be little babies who aren't old enough to have the whooping cough vaccine, or they might be an older person with cancer. And that's why we vaccinate, not only to protect the individual, but for our community responsibility.
Yep.
But we do get it wrong, don't we? We had people email overnight and say, remember in Western Australia, the cases of the flu vaccine and the kids under 5 were getting sick, and then you banned it for kids under 5, didn't you? So can you see where people say, well, maybe we are getting it wrong?
Yeah, from time to time things do not go right, we get it wrong. That one vaccine was removed 18 months ago. It's not been used again for children. We've got safer vaccines which we know are safe, which are proven to be safe, which we've used last year and this year for flu. So occasionally things do get wrong. You balance up this one child who's died in Western Australia, his brain damage in Western Australia. That's a tragedy. Balance that against 5 children who've just died recently in New South Wales. So that's the kind of balance you're always making, at least a 10-fold benefit and usually a 100-fold benefit in favour of immunisation.
And life is all about balancing risk, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, just getting out of bed in the morning is a risk. You might fall over and hit your head. There is balancing, and seriously, balancing of risks. And if you look at the data for immunisation, it's about a 100-fold benefit in favour.
Okay. Professor Robert Booy and Viera, thank you very much for your time. People are very passionate about this topic, and we're seeing it today, tweeting, Facebook, Soapbox, everyone's having this.
But keep it nice as well. When you start discussing with other people, sort of, I'm reading some of the comments on our Facebook page thinking, holy dooly, everyone just settled down.